the recording. Okay, so for the 18-19 amounts for JDEP, they're funded at $11,382.21 per ADM. YCEP is funded at $15,176.28. And we're using the July through February ADM levels. For 18-19, we'll continue to supplement the small sites that do not generate sufficient ADM revenue for a full-time teacher. So for those that don't have sufficient funding for a full-time teacher, email me or contact me, and then we'll try to supplement you. And here is a spreadsheet. Oh, not this spreadsheet. Oh, and then what I wanted to do too is I wanted to show everybody how we arrived at. This is the ADM sheet that we send out every month or every so often to track, and then so that's your ADM level, and then that's how we get here. So this is the spreadsheet. The formula is the per ADM amount times 2 for YCEP times your ADM, and so forth. So just like here, F2, so everyone has the same formula. And then for JDEP, the formula is the per ADM amount times 1.5 times your ADM amount, and so forth. So everybody is getting the same amount. We're not taking Peter to Rob, Paul, or whatnot. So the sites in yellow, we feel that you may need a supplement to have at least a full-time teacher at your site, at least one, which is a contract requirement. And on here is the per ADM amount for YCEP and per ADM amount for JDEP. And I want to remind those of you that are aware that this is our statute for YCEP and JDEP, ORS 327.026. And every year we have this hanging over our heads, which is number 4. Funds allocated to the YCEP and JDEP program remain with us, but we have to reconcile that amount the following year. So in other words, for instance, this year for YCEP, we said it's at 385, but the actual ADM is coming at 336. So it looks like next school year we may have to give back 48 ADM. For JDEP, it looks like we're probably going to look ahead. So I just wanted everyone to be reminded of that, of this statute where after the school year ends, the following May, we have to reconcile for the actual ADM amount that actually came in. And I'm going to show you some historical data on our ADM levels. So here's JDEP. Here's the fourth quarter. Last year was really low where it dipped to 171. Others, it was like in the 190s. But YCEP, which is good because it shows that crime is down. It's gone from 681, 617, 505, 479, and so forth, and then 374, and right now we're at like 332. So historically, YCEP has a downward trend because we're incarcerating less kids, less crime. But then, of course, that means less funding for us. But on the grand scheme of things, if we have less crime, if we're incarcerating less kids, that's better for everybody. Well, actually, that's better for society as a whole. The timing of amendments will arrive in late April or early May for next year. And these are just state school fund amounts. They will not include agreement amounts for Title 1D and IDA for 18-19. And already your current 17-18 agreement amounts already include the second and third estimates for IDA and your Title 1D. So I'm going to unmute everybody so that people can ask questions if they had questions.
Hi, Sam. This is Iris from Multnomah ESD. I have one question for you.
Sure.
Email you with the amount needed to have for a full-time teacher. Do you have like a time preference? When do you need to get the email from us? By?
If you could email it to me by and I'll put in the notes, Thursday, April 5th. And the reason why I'm choosing April 5th is because I'll be on vacation and I return on the 4th. So that'll give you time to work on things. So 2 weeks to work on things.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense for me to make it due and then I'm not even around to work on it. So Thursday, April 5th, 8 a.m.
Okay.
Then I can work on it on that Thursday, Friday.
Okay. Small site, are you talking about like, the ADM below 10, or do you have some kind of definition on, what site, that do not
We've
have?
been estimating, that's something where we can discuss, and we've been estimating like 120 to 125, but if your costs are greater than that, then we can talk. But it's like, what does each site need to have a full-time teacher? Because, for instance, I don't know, like MESD may have higher cost per teacher versus another site. So it depends on each individual site.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, like, for instance, at Yamhill, you're at 96,000, so you may not need as much, and so forth. And then at Lincoln County, they're at 21,000, and then their cost is a little different. So, and similar to 17-18 and in the years past, I think we've been with all the small sites, we've been able to arrive at a good number. Any other questions?
Sam, this is Joy Koenig. Can you hear me?
Hi, Joy. Yes,
Hi.
I can hear you.
So, for example, for the question on the YCEP high schools, if you have the number in parentheses, does that mean we will be cut that number times the ADM amount for the next year?
Oh, no. That is just no. It's not a cut. Like, this is your amount for next year. I mean, like, so for Ocean Dunes and Riverside and Three Lakes, that's the amount that will be there for 18-19.
Okay, so, but if we were funded at a different amount last year, because normally, isn't it you used to fund for a biennium, but this is a special year where you just funded for a year at a time?
No, we've always funded year by year because like, if you look at here, like our site for the ADM, and then it says here for each school year.
And is there at any time, and this is a bigger question, but when it says it's multiplied by a 2.0 for student weight, the actual result is not a 2.0 per student because we are required to offer 228 days of schooling versus 190 days of schooling. So if we were to actually look at an equitable distribution for YCEP, it would be about a 2.75 ratio, and JDEP would be more as well. So I'm wondering if that's ever a conversation at the higher level that ODE is going to advocate for?
Joy, that'll be part of that's part of our agenda for later on for our policy absent package.
Great.
And we've advocated for that, and actually what it is a 22% increase from 180 to 180 days to 220 days. We calculated it, and it is 22% increase.
Okay, great. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And everyone, Joy, when she says 228, the 8 days are actually paid holidays, so their teacher contract calls for 228 days, but our contract calls for 220 contact days.
Yes.
Which all of you know. And then
Yeah.
220, and if you think of 20 days in a working month, that's 11 months with 1 month off for spring break, 1 week off for spring, 2 weeks off for Christmas, 1 week off in the summer, which is the 12th month.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? These are good questions. And it just happens they're all from MESD, which is fine. Any other questions before I move on?
Oh my goodness, you're funny.
I get 5-day holidays. So really they should be paying me for 225 days and me showing up for
Well, I hear some discussion. Do you have questions? Otherwise, I'm going to mute everybody and go on. No other questions? Okay, I'm going to mute everybody. I'm green, so. And let me know if people can't hear me via chat. Okay, next, people wanted to know updates on facility openings and closings, as so some people weren't aware. So this past summer and early fall, Hillcrest from OIA closed, so Robert Farrell closed, and South Jetty closed, North Coast Youth Correctional Facility, that was in Warrenton. And there was an opening at Josephine County, that's an 8-bed facility in Grants Pass, and Grants Pass School District is our educational provider, and they have 8 beds there. And when we visited last week, I think they had 3 or 4 kids there, which was good, because we don't want it to be too full, and we don't want it to be too empty either. And then RFI, I asked for feedback from certain providers, and some of them provided feedback on our online assessment RFI, and our current online assessment is Let's Go Learn. So that'll go out shortly. I need to incorporate our providers' feedback and so forth. I know some people like Let's Go Learn, some people don't, but and it's time. We've had it for about 5 years, so it's time to see what's out there. It's not like we're unhappy with them, but it's to see what's out there and to see what other products are out there. Next, the online curriculum classes for high school. Adam Henning's going to speak to that.
Well, currently we don't have one unified online curriculum courses for all of the YCEP, JDEP, and LTCT programs. So we're doing some investigations and looking at doing an RFI to see if it makes sense to go to one sole online source for using. And part of the reasoning behind that is because as kids move through the system, if they can continue to work within the same program, it actually helps us from letting kids drop through the cracks and things like that. So that's what we're looking at. We're in the early stages of the RFI, but we'll keep everybody updated as things progress.
And when Adam talks about the system, regardless of setting, if the kid is at JDEP, LTCT, or YCEP, or even in a regular K-12, if they need to continue that course, if they only need 2 units out of 14 units to complete the course, let's give them access, to that course. Just like Let's Go Learn, each kid has 1 calendar year per course to complete. So it could be where the online course curriculum, regardless of setting, as long as the kid has access to the computer, they could complete that course because our kids transfer out anytime during the calendar year. So that's what Adam means. I'm going to unmute everybody to see if anyone has questions. Does anyone have questions? No questions? Okay, I'm going to move on and I'm going to mute everybody. Okay, so as Joy was alluding to, we have OD recognizes, OIA recognizes, OJDDA, which is the Oregon Juvenile Department Directors Association recognized, and our education lobby partners such as OEA, COSA, OSPA, we all recognize that funding for JDEP and YCEP is insufficient. And so just like for the 17-19 biennial, we're preparing a policy option package requesting additional funding for JDEP, YCEP. And the rationale is insufficient funding at small sites for full teacher, the additional 220 of instructional leaves behind the 180 days. And here's something that I want everyone's input and discussion on 10 days or less students. And I know a lot of you have questions about this, so please be patient and let me go through the chart. So this is the data that we pulled from ADM for YCEP. These are the these are not kids. I have to can people see via chat? Do I need to make this larger? Hopefully people can see on their screen. So for YCEP, these are not students. These are instances of stays. So last school year, there were 48 instances in YCEP that was 5 school days or less. And there are 78 instances of stays that were 10 school days or less. So roughly 10%. And as you know, kids go between YCEP for medical or court appearances. Even within our YCEP, they unroll and enroll the kids even if they're there for a short period of time. For JDEP, our data is reversed where, and here's YCEP, so these two are like roughly 10% for the length of stay, but for JDEP, it's roughly 75, the orange and the blue, where 75% of our stays are for 10 days or less. We had 2,118 instances of 5 school days or less, and 846 instances of 10 school days or less. And of course, I'm pretty sure the 32 instances are measure 11, and the 30 to 45, it could be extended detention or the YCC kids. Oh, I'm sorry, YCC stands for Youth Care Center kids, where some of our JDEP sites contract with OIA to house youth center kids in their detention facilities, such as Norcor, Mount Newell in Roseburg, and I believe Josephine County is working something out with OIA to have YCC kids there too. So for these, students, we have instances where, and we've heard stories from POs and stories where once a kid leaves their school, goes into JDEP and wants to return, schools are hesitant or they put up roadblocks to re-enroll, to re-enroll kids, to accept the kids and so forth. And then there are instances that I've been told. One, there was a kid that was in a charter school that entered JDEP and wanted to return to the charter school, and the charter school said no because that charter school had a waiting list. And once that kid left, that spot was given to the next person up on that waiting list. And another was open district transfer. If a kid is at a school district with open district transfer and enters JDEP, because the student unenrolled from that school district said, nope, you have to go back to your resident or geographic school district. So those are some instances where students have been negatively impacted, because whenever a kid enters JDEP, they have to enroll and be included on our ADM count. And what we're thinking, and here's another thing, another impact is our dropout rate. As you can see, JDEP greatly outnumbers YCEP and LTCT for our dropout rate. So if our JDEP kids were to remain on that school district's roster, then there might be incentive for that school district to accept the kid back into their K-12 school because they're still their kids, instead of saying don't come back or whatnot. Because and part of this goal is so that I just want to eliminate the obstacles and barriers for our JDEP and YCEP kids of re-entering and continuing their education in the K-12 setting. And our data shows for a lot of our JDEP kids, they're not, these are our dropouts. And dropouts mean JDEP was the last school of record. They did not enroll in a general K-12 setting. And yes, there are some instances where JDEP kids go to private school. And then Adam and I were looking at some of the private school tuitions around the state. Not many would be able to afford that. And yes, there are some out-of-state students, but not to the point of raising it up to 28%. So what we're thinking of asking in the POP is not only for additional funding for these things, the additional for teacher and instructional days, but also for additional funding to offset JDEP and YCEP not claiming on ADM the students that are there 10 days or less. But those students would still have to be entered into Synergy for tracking or whatnot, but then that still needs to be thought out and talked about. But our goal is, if we have sufficient funding, JDEP and YCEP will not claim ADM for those students, so that those students don't have to unroll from the neighborhood K-12 school. Any thoughts? Some people have said, and I'm going to unmute everybody so that we can hear everyone's thoughts and suggestions. And if you have true life stories, anecdotal stories that you want to share with me, and don't include the name, and that way, as I speak and advocate for this, people will, I can share your stories. Thoughts? And I just unmuted everybody. Any thoughts? Good, not good, good idea?
Sam, this is Joy.
Hi, Joy.
Hi. So I guess I am the question person. For YCEP, it makes sense. I like it. For JDEP, I'm wondering about when you say they're going to be supplemented with funds. So we wouldn't enroll these kids, they would be maintained at their school districts, yet we would still get funding. Is that kind of the gist of what you're going to propose?
Yes. For instance, right now, our state school fund unit is attempting to calculate from 16, 17, if we did not claim these students on the ADM roster, what would be the loss of revenue? So we would,
yeah, it would be
if we lost,
JDEP.
Yes, like if we lost 75% of our revenue, so then that would mean that we would need to ask for additional 75% of 2 million, which is about 1.5 million in general fund, not state school fund.
I like the thinking. It seems more streamlined. It seems more economies of scale.
Other thoughts? And please let us know if you have, like, if there could be unintended consequences or like some negatives. But it does not mean that these students that are there for 10 days or less don't have to be input into Synergy. They still need to be input into Synergy, but they just don't have to be claimed on the ADM roster. that's our proposal. That's our proposal. But the school districts, they will not be unrolled from their roster. So those school districts will still claim those kids up to 10 days. So that neighborhood school district can still claim those kids while they're in JDEP. But we need to figure out a way to supplement our ADM funding to make up for that loss in revenue.
And this is Brian.
Hi, Brian. From Douglas ESD.
Correct. Sam, wouldn't that just affect the dropout rates for the schools that these students are coming from, though?
It depends. Okay, like for instance, like if suppose and then everyone knows I always use the names Isaac and Irene because Isaac and Irene are the names of my kids. So suppose Isaac's at Roseburg High School, you know, and he enters JDEP. The current system, if Isaac and enters the Mount Nebo JDEP facility. So if Isaac does not return to Roseburg High School, then that and decides and does not graduate, that dropout rate will attribute to Mount Nebo. But with the system that I'm proposing, if Isaac entered JDEP and once he's released, Roseburg High School, they will know that Isaac is still on their roster, so they may strive and they may make an extra effort to reach out to Isaac and to get him re-enrolled into their high school or into one of their alternative programs. I forgot, because they have that alternative school, in Roseburg. It was something called something else. Forgot the name of that site.
That was it.
Yeah. So yes, if Isaac doesn't return, then then it could impact Roseburg High School. But theoretically, for kids that are just gone for less than 10 days, they should be the high school or that school district's, student.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah. Other questions, feedback? Oh, sorry. Okay, so here's a question.
Sam, this is Kevin from Medford. So I'm wondering if maybe a different plan might be to use our Measure 98, our school success funding, to create a transition plan for those kids back into their home high school and keep the system the way it is so that we don't lose funding in the other areas. And maybe we just try to do a better job of using the dropout prevention part of those Measure 98 funds for a smooth transition back into high school.
That's an idea, and then yeah, that's an idea for schools to use, high school success funds for transition.
Well, I'm just thinking if there's money there and we don't want to lose, other funding sources, maybe it's better to look at it that way.
Right, because your Measure 98 funds are generated by ADM.
Correct.
And it could be where perhaps we can talk with the Measure 98 unit and talk to them and say, instead of ADM, use a different, mechanism. As long as, because like if kids that enter JDEP are still being tracked in Synergy, you could, we could come up with a different mechanism to generate Measure 98 funding. Yeah. And then, but then here's it. So what Kevin is proposing is it might work for Medford School District. That is not something that we will mandate statewide. Each JDEP site and each YCEP site with your Measure 98 funding, you still have the latitude and local control to use how you feel to use your Measure 98 funds. And then I just need to remind everybody, in Oregon, there's 36 counties, but we only have 12 JDEP sites. So there are some sites that, for instance, Lincoln, they service Tillamook and Lincoln County, but there's other JDEP sites that service multiple counties, such as Deschutes, they service Central Oregon, and Klamath goes east and so forth. So, so some of our counties, some of our JDEP sites serve multiple counties, multiple school districts, and of course Multnomah, which is our largest, services many school districts because they service Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah County. Any other thoughts or discussion? Yes, and I'm looking at some of the chat responses. Yes, I like, yes, we have traumatized students, and yes, yes, and Mount Nebo serves a lot of students from multiple counties, and partly because they also have care center beds from OYA, and OYA, if they're OYA, they come from all parts of the state. Okay, so if there's no other questions, or any thoughts or anything? Oh, someone asked, what about requesting records for students that have IEPs? Yes, you still may request, well, that's something we'll talk about, but that is something you may request records, but on that records request, you could probably state, but please keep that student on your active ADM roster. You don't have to enroll the kid. That way, and there's an incentive where that school district will still be able to clean the student for that short period of time. Any other questions or comments on anything that we covered today? Okay, so a question that was asked from others was, when will the spreadsheet be emailed out and the YouTube? Within half an hour or an hour at the conclusion of this webinar, I'll go up, get on my computer and email this out to everybody. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if that's it, then thank you everybody for participating. And if you have stories of how students were dropped from their K-12 school and then they were there only for a short time and they were not able to re-enroll in their neighborhood K-12 school setting, if you have stories, please send them to me. That'll be very helpful for me as we advocate for this. And again, thank you everybody. And if you have, as always, if you have any questions or comments, please send them to me or Adam. All right, thank you everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you everybody.
Thank you, Sam. Have a great day.